So you guys have heard of the American dream, right? Go to college, get a job, buy a nice house with a white picket fence, have a couple kids, a dog or two. Well, the house part of that American dream, buying a house, has gotten very difficult for a lot of people in America as the housing costs have gone through the roof. And well, I don't know when, if ever, this will get better. Let's talk about it.
The housing market has become so unaffordable for most Americans over the past 4 years, and I want to show you what happened. In February of 2020, the average house in this country was $275,000. If you put a 10% down payment and got a 3.52% interest rate, your principal and interest was $1,114 plus $500 for property tax and insurance, puts your payment out the door at $1,614. The average American only needed about $50,000 in a salary with very little debt to qualify for the average home in America. That was awesome, the American dream. Now in February of 2022, the average home went up to about $350,000. 10% down, but the interest rates were still 3.73%. So principal and interest was $1,455 plus about $600 for property tax and homeowner insurance. Put your payment out the door at $2,055. So you needed about $65,000 in a salary with very little debt to qualify. Still very doable. Now let's fast forward to current day, February 2024. Home prices have shot up to $415,000, 10% down payment. Interest rates are 6.75%, $2,423 principal and interest, $700 for property tax and homeowners insurance. Now you're looking at $3,123. So now you need about $95,000 to qualify if you have very little debt. So if you look at the down payments over the year, it's gone up only about $14,000, $15,000, which is a lot, but also doable in 4 years. But what really pinched Americans is how many individuals went from $50,000 to almost $100,000 in salary in just 4 years. That's why so many Americans can't afford a home right now.
Holy smokes, guys. These are difficult times, very difficult times. I mean, you saw the price of a home go from $275,000 in 2020 to what was it, $415,000, whatever it was. So that increase right there is not being matched with wages. By that I mean wages aren't going up nearly as fast to match the increase in the price of homes, right? And on top of that, interest rates have gone up. Sure, now the Fed's cutting rates, but still, we're up a lot in terms of the rate from where it was over the last couple of years. So it's crazy. In 2020, your payment, including, your mortgage, right, insurance, taxes, whatever, was around $1,500-$1,600. You guys saw it in that example, in that video. And now, 4 years later, the price of the home has gone up a lot, rates have gone up, and now you're looking at a $3,100 payment, right? So that could be for the same house, right? Just 4 years later, your payment has doubled. These are crazy times. And again, your salary, people's wages in the US, here in America, have not gone up double. I could tell you that for sure. Crazy.
Housing is now less affordable than any other time in U.S. history. The average monthly mortgage payment is now over $3,300. The average cost to rent is now nearly $2,200. Typically what happens is when you have rising interest rates, housing prices tend to go down, but this has not been the case. The median home price is actually rising in addition to rising rates. A median home in the U.S. is selling for roughly $400,000 and rates are at 7%. A lot of this is due to how quickly they rose interest rates because a lot of people have rates locked in at under 3%, whereas new buyers are kind of screwed over. So people who locked in really low rates really have no reason to move or sell. The median age for a new home buyer is now 36 years old, the highest it's ever been. People are spending over half of their income just to pay rent or for their mortgage. And heading into 2024, things aren't really looking to get any better unless there's a drastic increase in the housing supply.
Bingo. That's the problem. They're not building nearly as many houses these days as they were, 20, 40, 50, 60 years ago. So supply is suppressed. Obviously, demand is through the roof. That's one reason why, we're getting these crazy spikes in the prices. And now, it's 100% better to rent. Nobody's denying that. Renting is a lot cheaper, more affordable than buying a home pretty much everywhere in the United States. Maybe not in certain states in the Midwest. I mean, I don't know. I'm from New Jersey, guys, which we'll take a look at a New Jersey example here in a second. But man, it's a lot cheaper to rent than to buy a house right now. And did you hear what he said? The average age of a home buyer now is 36 years old. The first time home buyer, which it was a lot lower in the past, right? Which makes sense. Now people are, living with their parents in their late 20s. They're renting for a lot of their 20s into their 30s, which isn't necessarily bad, but compared to where we used to be, where you'd buy a house in your mid-20s and not rent for that long, yeah, things have gotten worse. And he also mentioned how people are spending half of their income on their rent or on their mortgage, which is crazy, right? We're not talking about renting so much in this video, but pretend like you're spending half of your money on your mortgage every single month. You're considered house poor, right? You don't want to be house poor. I would not buy a house nowadays if I can't fully afford that mortgage easily, right? I have to afford it easily to buy a home these days, which again, for most people now, it's hard to do that on the median salary in the United States, right? Whatever it is, $50,000, $60,000. It's very hard to afford a home easily. You're going to have to make well into the six figures to actually do that. So this video we're about to watch, guys, this shows you how much house you can afford based on a couple different examples, and you'll see how much income you'll need to afford these houses. Get ready for your mind to be blown. Let's take a look.
You can grab a house for $250,000, put a 3% down payment, 3 to 4% of closing costs, so about $15,000 to get your foot in the door. 7.5% interest rate would put your principal and interest at $1,700 a month, plus $500 for taxes and insurance would put your total payment at $2,200 a month. I'll save the incomes for last. The metropolitan areas are looking at $30,000 for down payment and closing costs, 7.5% interest rate, principal and interest at $3,000 plus $800 for taxes and insurance, putting your total payment at $3,800. Now in the expensive cities like in California or New York, you're looking at $800,000, $50,000 for down payment and closing costs, 7.5% interest rate would put your principal and interest at $5,200 plus another $1,300 for taxes and insurance would put your payment out the door around $6,500. Now, what income would you need to qualify for these homes, or at least have a shot at qualifying for these homes? So for $2,200 a month in this Midwest home, you're looking at about a $70,000 income with very little debt. In the metropolitan area here with $3,800 for the monthly payment, you're looking at $120,000 with very little debt. And then here in the expensive big city, you're looking about $200,000, maybe even a little bit more depending on your debt. So anyone who's looking for relocation, these homes do exist across America. So that's going to be the big question over the next 5 to 10 years. Are people going to relocate to buy a primary home?
Wow. Imagine your mortgage being $6,500 per month, all in, mortgage, principal, insurance, taxes, whatever. That's insane. $6,500 per month. Even for the $450,000 house example, $3,800 a month is a lot of money. Most Americans just cannot afford that. I think the income for that one was $120,000 a year. That's a good amount of income, no doubt about it, but $3,800 a month coming out of that income, it's doable, but you might feel a pinch on certain months. I don't know, depending on the size of your family, what you guys spend money on. So this is a lot of money these days. And personally, I'm not a big fan of putting 3% down, 5% down, because number one, your payment is going to be ridiculous if you're not putting a big down payment down. And number two, you have to pay PMI, right? Which is another couple $100 a month, whatever that is. So in my eyes, guys, in my opinion, and by the way, guys, I rent right now. My wife and I rent, we're looking to get a house eventually, to be honest, not really anytime soon. But I'm feeling this too. It's like, what kind of prices are these? It's nuts. So in my opinion, putting a good down payment down is very important. 20% at least. I'm a big fan of a big down payment, not to rush buying your first house just because, it's the thing to do in society, right? That's pretty stupid. So don't rush it. Save a good size down payment so then, you can actually have a decent monthly payment where you're not house poor. You don't want to be house poor, guys. So this example right here is a New Jersey example. I'm not sure where you guys are watching this video from, but New Jersey is a bit more expensive compared to other states. So let's take a look at this.
How much does it actually cost to buy a home here in New Jersey? This may or may not blow your mind. The median priced home here in New Jersey is $540,000. With a 10% down payment, your down payment would be $54,000 and your mortgage would be $486,000. At today's 6.25% interest rate, you would have principal and interest of $29.92. Assuming a 2% tax rate, taxes would be $916.66. Insurance would be $133.33. And you'd have about $200 in PMI because your down payment is less than 20%, giving you a grand total of $4,241.99. What's wild is the income you need to be able to afford that payment comfortably, which at 28% pre-tax income means you'd be making about $15,000 per month. So to afford the median home here in New Jersey, you would need to make $181,799.57.
There you go, guys. There you go. You have to make almost $200,000 per year, $15,000 a month, right? I think that's a little bit less than 200,000. Either way, whatever. You're going to have to make a good amount of money in New Jersey and a lot of these other states, right? It's not just New Jersey, to afford the median home, which is like $550,000. And by the way, guys, newsflash, I'm in New Jersey right now. You don't really get that wild of a house for $500,000 these days. It's not like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, where a $500,000 house, it's big. It's like 3,000 square feet. You know, you got 3 floors, including the basement. These days, you're getting, a 1,300 square foot house, 1,500 square feet, no basement, a smaller house for over $500,000. Man, unbelievable. And in that example, he put 10% down. Again, I like putting 20%, but man, it's tough these days. And the housing market is in an interesting spot when they're building new developments and new floor plans that allow you to bring your adult kids inside of your home, considering a lot of people these days that are graduating college, right? They can't afford to buy a home for sure. Some of them can't even afford to rent, depending on the career they have. So take a look at this, guys. Pretty wild.
You know the economy is bad when you get something like this in your inbox. Housing affordability is so terrible that I'm seeing these new innovative next-gen plans. I just got this email about multi-generational housing, these new plans, right? This has been around forever. Here's the difference. In the past, these things have been marketed where it's like, you can have your grandparents, you can have your parents live with you, take care of them, the family can be together. No. This email, welcome to our greatest innovation. Now you have a place for your kids to come back to after school. Look at this. They have their own garage, their own place to eat, their own bedroom. We live in a pay-to-survive society. Housing is so unaffordable, living is so unaffordable, that a solution for aging parents who needed to be near family so that you could take care of them is now being marketed as a solution for your children who cannot afford to live. My only question is, if this is where the kids are going to live after they go to college, where are grandma and grandpa going to live?
Yeah, man, it's sad these days. It really is. I feel for the people coming out of college now with how much just inflation has gone up over the last couple of years. It's really hard to survive, especially if you're in a career field where you're not making much money, let's say 30 to 40 to 50K a year. It's pretty much impossible to survive on your own unless you live somewhere in the Midwest, somewhere like that where it's a lot cheaper to live, right? But if you're somewhere like New York, New Jersey, right, California, whatever it may be, you're going to need to live with roommates. You're going to need to figure something out until you get your income up. So they're making these new floor plans, it looks like, or new, construction homes. I don't know where that guy is that made that video, but holy moly. And do you guys want to know what absolutely grinds my gears? When older people or boomers, whatever you want to call them, guys, all right, when they're like, oh, we had high interest rates back in the day, you have to work harder. You have to, save more money, maybe get another job. Well, let's take a look at this one last video. By the way, guys, hit that like button and make sure to subscribe. here on YouTube. Let's take a look at this one.
Don't forget the boomers had 13% interest rates in the 80s. I wish we had 13% interest rates today if that meant we had your home prices. In 1980, the median household income was $22,000 and the median home price was $47,000. That was only twice the yearly salary. And if you wanted to put down a 20% down payment and closing costs, it would cost you about $11,000, which is only half the yearly salary. So you have your 13% interest rates. Your monthly payment was $485 a month, which was only 26% of your gross income. Now, if we had the same setup that you did in the 80s, our median household income is $80,000. That means the house price would sit around $170,000. A 20% down payment closing cost would be $40,000. 13% interest rates would put our payment at $1,790 a month, which is 26% of our gross income. All would be well in the world. But here's our actual reality. Median household income, $80,000. The median home price in 2024 is $419,000, which is 5 times the salary. And if you wanted to put down 20% and closing costs, it would be $100,000, which is more than the actual yearly salary. Even though we have 7% interest rates, the payment out the door is still $2,800 a month, which would eat away at 42% of our income. And here's the kicker. Someone making $80,000 in most cases can't even qualify for this. In fact, I wouldn't even recommend anyone making 80 grand spend more than $300,000 on a house because you don't want to be house poor.
Boom. There you go, guys. There you go. People in the 80s, people in the, in this example, the 80s, we'll stick to that era. They had it way easier, right? Way easier to qualify for a home, to afford a home, and, actually pay the frickin' mortgage every month, right? Nowadays, you guys saw the example there. You need to spend, or you need to make at least 80 grand to even qualify for a $420,000 house. And at that point, you're going to be house poor. You need to make more money than just that. And now it's unbelievable. In 1980, like we saw, a house was two times your yearly income, right? Now it's 5 times. It's unbelievable. Wages have not gone up. Salaries have not gone up. And that's the big problem. That's the big problem at the end of the day. That's what it is, right? So, yeah, it grinds my gears when boomers, older people are like, you guys have to save more money, this, that, get another job. In my day, it was harder. It was this, it was that. That's a bunch of BS. Now is when it's harder. Now it's when it's harder. And again, I feel bad for the people just coming out of college, just getting started in life with a ton of debt, ton of just inflation they're dealing with. It's unfreaking believable, right? So yeah, we'll wrap it up there. We'll leave it at that for this video. Housing prices, home affordability is down the toilet, man. It's just very rough to afford a house these days, and you're pretty much better off renting for the time being. What are your thoughts?